Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rachel Stevens. I'm the volunteer chapter chair for the Vermont chapter of Sierra Club. I also work in my day job at the Environmental Justice Clinic at Vermont Law School. And transportation equity is something that I have worked on for a lot of my academic and career life. So I'm very excited about this program that we have set up for you guys today. I want to thank our co-sponsors, the Vermont Natural Resources Council and the Transportation for Vermonters, for supporting this work. And we work in collaboration with them in our advocacy efforts, and we're glad to have them involved today. So Transit Equity Day is a collaborative effort of several organizations and unions to promote public transit, walking, biking, carpooling, and electric vehicles as a strategy to combat climate change. We have selected today, which is Rosa Parks' birthday, to honor her resistance to bus segregation, which led to the 1956 Supreme Court decision that found that bus segregation was unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. We want to make this connection to this act of resistance and Ms. Parks's insistence on equity to highlight the rights of all people to high quality, clean, and accessible modes of transportation. So tonight we have a great program. We're going to hear from our speaker, Lauren Jacoby of Old Spokes Home. She's going to present in regards to her involvement in the Transportation Equity Coalition. Old Spokes Home is building a transportation equity coalition made up of individuals and organizations who represent communities that are ill-served by our current transportation systems. Coalition members will give an overview of transportation equity, the critical role that it plays in achieving social justice, and what it looks like in Vermont. We're also presenting our first ever Transit Equity Awards. We accepted nominations for individuals, community leaders, public servants, nonprofit organizations, and businesses and municipalities that have been instrumental and have demonstrated leadership in promoting equitable access to clean transportation in Vermont. So we're going to have each award is going to be presented by a different member of the Sierra Club transportation team, starting with our chapter program manager, Rob Kidd.
Thank you, Rachel. Our first award that I wanted to do is actually for somebody who just recently died in December. Barbara Donovan, who was the Vermont Agency of Transportation Public Transit Program Manager for years. Barbara had an extensive career that started out in Maine around transportation, moved to Vermont, and had about over a 10-year career in Vermont, where she expanded access to transportation into a lot of rural communities that was not operating. She's not president, but her husband is not here tonight. But her husband is extremely appreciative of the award and the honor that Barbara is receiving. So that was our first particular award. The next member of our team, Sean.
Hi, folks. I'm Sean Jurecki. I'm a volunteer with Sierra Club Transportation Committee. And the next organization that we wanted to highlight was Migrant Justice for their work ensuring that migrant workers have access to driver's licenses and continuing to protect them from ICE's intrusion into the Department of Motor Vehicle Records. Due to their successful organization, the law was overwhelmingly passed and driver's licenses are available regardless of immigration status. This campaign was led by immigrant farm workers, and now these Vermonters can travel throughout the state. Due to lingering systemic racism, however, Migrant Justice continues to have to fight to ensure that the law is implemented as intended.
Hey, good evening, folks. My name is Will, and I'm a staff member with Migrant Justice. And there are two farm worker leaders on the line. I'm just going to summarize in Spanish what was just said, and then Marino or Jose will be responding. Hola, Marino. Hola, Nacho. Bienvenidos. Entonces, acaban de anunciar que están dando el premio por equidad en el transporte, justicia inmigrante, por la campaña que se hizo para ganar acceso a las licencias por la comunidad inmigrante en el estado. y el trabajo que han hecho desde entonces para asegurar que no se excluye a los beneficiarios de esta ley con discriminación y racismo, y que se sigue luchando para asegurar el acceso equitativo al transporte en el estado.
Muy bien. ¿Tendría que hablar ahora?
Sí, dale.
Sí, bueno, antes que nada, buenas noches al grupo que Club Sierra, ¿verdad? En esta noche, pues, damos gracias por ellos, por habernos tomado en cuenta, por este premio, y es bueno saber que hay más grupos que nos apoyen. Entonces, puede traducir eso por ahora.
So good evening, everybody. I want to thank the Sierra Club for giving us this award. And it's good to know that there are groups out there who are supporting this work.
Y bueno, Justicia Migrante ha hecho un buen trabajo, y como por ejemplo, han ganado la licencia, pues nos ha ayudado a nosotros como la comunidad migrante y toda la comunidad migrante aquí en Vermont. Entonces, es un buen trabajo que Justicia Migrante ha hecho en este estado.
And migrant justice has had a strong impact because winning licenses has not only helped the farm worker community, but the entire immigrant community in Vermont. And this has been a very good job.
¿Tendría que decir algo más?
Creo que no. Nacho, ¿quieres agregar algo rápido?
Mi nombre es Nacho y pues soy parte del Comité de Organización de Justicia Migrante, y pues igual, pues muchas gracias por darnos ese reconocimiento tan importante para nosotros. Y sí, como dice el compañero Marino, pues hemos peleado por mucho tiempo la licencia, y pues gracias al apoyo de toda la comunidad la ganamos. Y pues política acerca de eso, de no más discriminación, sobre igual la de no más polimigra, que pues esa política nos ayuda igual a sentirnos seguros cuando manejamos, y que si sabemos que si el policía nos para, no va a hablar a la migración para deportarnos.
And I just want to add to what my compañero Marino said. My name is Nacho, and I'm a member of Migrant Justice Farm Worker Coordinating Committee, and we're very appreciative of this award and this recognition of our work fighting for access to driver's licenses. And although we've passed the law to allow access, the fight continues because we're fighting back against the collaboration between local law enforcement and immigration agents, where if the police see us driving and they pull us over, then they can turn us over to ICE or Border Patrol, and that's what we're trying to stop.
Okay, ahora estamos reforzando la política de no más polimigra, que se debilitó por el expresidente Donald Trump, y pues estamos pasando la ley por los condados del área de Vermont.
And so we continue to fight to strengthen the laws prohibiting police-ICE collaboration in Vermont. These are laws that were weakened under the era of ex-President Trump, and now we have an opportunity to strengthen them once more.
De nuevo, muchas gracias, y pues sí se puede.
Once more, thank you very much, and sí se puede.
Gracias.
Gracias, Migrant Justice.
Yeah, gracias.
But thank you, everybody, very much. Gracias, Marino. Gracias, Nacho. Creo que ya se puede salir si quieren.
Thank you.
Bueno.
Thanks, everybody.
Gracias. Gracias a todos. Bye.
All right, well, I can take the next award. Thank you again to Migrant Justice. That was really powerful, and it's great to hear of all the different types of movements out in Vermont. This next award goes to a community member who's done great work with sustainable transportation around Montpelier. This goes to Dan Jones of Sustainable Montpelier. Dan is here apparently, and I'll just give him a little intro. He's one of the co-founders of Sustainable Montpelier Coalition, which focuses mostly on sustainable local systems, including food security, land use, transportation, and other such things. He's working as a community partner, with the Vermont Agency of Transportation, or VCHANS, Green Mountain Transit, or GMT, VIA, and MyRide, to implement pilot projects called MyRide by GMT, which allows flexible routes and schedules for different bike or different transportation options. So I'll give it over to Dan to say a few words, and congratulations.
Grateful for this recognition of our work in attempting to build a more resilient local future. We're, and I couldn't be doing it without the partnership of our board, our team at the Sustainable Montpelier Coalition. One of the challenges in building a resilient community is to get people to have a different vision of what's possible, rather than thinking that what is now is what's going to be in the future. So we started this with a whole process of having a design competition to see what could be done differently in Montpelier. We built the coalition around issues of land use, around transportation, et cetera. And we've been really grateful that the state and others have bought into this. And so we're attempting to see if we can actually build a different model of how to get people around without their individual cars. How can we get them in and out of town on a shared transit thing? So that's what the new process is. Obviously, starting in the middle of an epidemic is a bit of a challenge, but we're excited that it's up, it's running. People seem to be using it. We're having about the same use of it that the transit system had a month before we started, so that's a good sign. And we're looking forward for everybody to sort of keep an eye on it, because we think this may be applicable to all the small cities in Vermont if we can work the bugs out here in Montpelier. So thanks a lot for the recognition. I appreciate the work the Sierra Club is doing, and I hope we can be working together in the future.
Thank you, Dan Jones.
Bravo, Dan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And David Ellenbogen from our transportation team.
Yeah, so this next award goes to the Brattleboro Coalition for Active Transport. Their mission is to promote safe, healthy, accessible transportation for people of all abilities, ages, and incomes. They see tremendous social, environmental, and economic value to the community in normalizing active non-automobile transportation. It's a grassroots group. They started about 8 years ago. Their accomplishments range from a bike-friendly road sign on Melrose Bridge in Brattleboro and restriping Cedar Street to the downtown bike parklet that's near Vermont Artisan Designs. And they also just this past year earned, actually just a couple months ago, earned honorable mention from the League of American Bicyclists in their list of the American list of bike-friendly cities or towns. They've been meeting through Zoom now that COVID has impacted things, and enormous citizen support within Brattleboro. Over 100 respondents to their survey. They're responding to the influx of electric bikes and just doing tremendous work. So anyway, hats off to the coalition. Keep your eye on them, and a nod of the hat, a tip of the hat to Local Motion actually has given them some technical support in the past and is helping with their website. So it's nice to see, nonprofits across the state working together like this. And this is grassroots down in Brattleboro at its best. Brattleboro Coalition for Active Transport.
And because of logistics, I didn't get word out to them till earlier today, so that I don't expect that anybody from them was attending, unless somebody did come on at the last minute. Okay. Then for that, our last word, Steve Crowley from the Vermont Sierra Club.
Greetings, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. So this last award goes to a couple of groups, two groups that are working in Burlington, the Pine Street Coalition and the Racial Justice Alliance. Through their advocacy work on the Champlain Parkway, these two groups are seeking to promote sustainable approaches to major new transportation artery, recognizing climate, community, and environmental justice concerns. Their mission to redesign the Champlain Parkway seeks to meet the needs of these communities, decrease environmental impacts and global warming emissions, and make it safe for those who walk along the bike corridor. So we have two people here tonight who are here to accept this award. And I'm pleased to introduce, I think first we'll go to Tony Reddington. Tony, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you, Steve. I assume that you can hear me.
Yes.
First, I can say thank you for the first award I received last century for the Power of One from the Vermont chapter. And I think what's important here is that while there's a power of one, there's also the power of many. And I think that we appreciate this reward because it recognizes the multiple efforts that take place to gain change. The Pine Street Coalition is honored to be recognized in collaboration with the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance for standing up to the blatant environmental injustice posed by the Champlain Parkway and advocating instead for a safer, greener, and racially equitable solution, the Champlain Right Way. Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have, I believe we have Mark Hughes from the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance. Mark, are you here?
Yep, I'm right here.
Great, welcome.
And thank you so much. Thank you, Tony, for the intro. And I just want to give a shout
Mark,
out to
we're getting your cover picture, but we're not seeing you, which is fine if you want that.
That's just a shame because I'm so
I know.
good looking.
That's what I was
see here. Just shouting out to Rob and just saying hey, and I appreciate you, Rob, and also appreciate all of the work that you continue to do with the Sierra Club. It is a big deal, and it always has been a big deal to me. So thank you so much, and also thank you for the recognition. We don't feel like we've accomplished a whole lot yet, but we're still working at it. But I think that's the story of activism. It's a continuous fight. And I think it was Gene Sharp or somebody who said, "Claim victory and run." I have I think Tony pretty much just summarized it and summed everything up rather. And I'll just drop one quick thing in the chat for everybody to take a look at. There's an old dude by the name of Robert Bullard who has the claim to fame of being the father of environmental justice. I just wanted to share that with the group and also just take a couple of seconds and read something just right on the front page. It says, "America is segregated, and so is pollution. Race and class still matter and map closely with population, unequal protection, and vulnerability. Today's zip code is still the most potent predictor of an individual's health and well-being. Individuals who physically live on the, quote, wrong side of the tracks are subjected to elevated environmental health threats and more than their fair share of preventable disease. Still, too many people and communities have the wrong complexion for protection. Reducing environmental, health, economic, and racial disparities is a major priority of the environmental justice movement." With that, I'll just say that, I think consistent with the framework that we're using in our legislative agenda, acknowledge, create, and transform, I'll just say, I think it's imperative that we acknowledge these areas where high impact and high discretion decision points have historically handed Black and brown folks the short end of the stick, and create new approaches and bring to bear the full power within the scope of our authority to ensure equitable outcomes. And finally, transform. We need to transform policies and systems that we know inflict generational damage to Black and brown bodies. We must abandon the old white way and embrace the new right way. So I thank you again for inviting us. Thanks for acknowledging us, and a huge shout out to all of the magnificent work of the Sierra Club. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
much, Mark. Oh,
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
and thank you, Tony.
Yeah,
So now,
thank you for all the award winners. There's just an image I had up of it. So thank you for everybody on there. So, okay, Rachel.
yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mark, for that important message. So now we're going to hear from Laura Jacoby from Old Spokes Home, who's going to share a little bit about what the future of transportation equity might be like. What's possible. Laura?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel and everyone. I don't know. Now I feel like what we're doing is very little. I feel like I'm singing to the choir, and really it's, I mean, the awardees are all doing important work on the ground. I was, kind of, this presentation will be a little bit of a, let's take a broader view of the issue, and then, a little bit about what Old Spokes Home is trying to contribute. So I did put together a little PowerPoint for it. So I will share my screen. So Old Spokes Home, we're a bike shop in Burlington. We're also a nonprofit, and we create access to bikes and the opportunities they provide for our whole community. And we do that for a lot of reasons. Bikes are fun, but also bikes contribute a ton, including to equity and equity in terms of mobility and transportation. And that is so important. Bikes play an important role in that in Vermont, because our transportation system, our transit system is not as robust as it would be if it were to meet the needs, and so we're very reliant on cars in Vermont, as you all know, and yet a lot of Vermonters don't have access to a car, right? In Burlington, where we are, 8% of residents live in a zero car household, meaning there's no car in the household. And a lot of those are right around the shop. And 34% live in a single car household. And in Vermont, the whole state, the numbers are a little bit similar. We know that people that don't have a car, again, struggle with our car-centric transportation system. But also, even if you're in a household with one car, a lot of those members of that household struggle with transportation. If we think about a household with two wage earners, and one wage earner has the car, the other wage earner, we know, is looking for a job close to home where they can walk or bike, which may limit opportunities. We see young people in households that the wage earner has the one car, and so the high schooler isn't going to after school sports, or isn't getting an after school job or a summer job, or accessing opportunities in the summer. So and we know how important summer jobs are to future success after high school, which is why those of us with easy access to cars shuttle our kids around to after school jobs. So it's just tons of opportunities that are not being accessed by people who don't have access to an individual motor vehicle, or don't have easy access to an individual motor vehicle. And Jorge, who's on the call, pointed out to me that this actually, and this is probably this is an underrepresentation of the households who that don't have access to a car in Vermont, because these numbers are from the American Community Survey in 2019. And that survey had the legal status question on it. A lot of us know that the Supreme Court didn't allow it on the census, but it was a question on the American Community Survey. So we know a lot of people that don't have access to cars didn't actually fill out the survey because of that question. So Old Spokes Home helps get people without access, or easy access to a car, we get them on affordable bicycles. And we know that our customers are riding those bikes for transportation. In the last survey that we did of our customers who qualify for subsidized bikes, most of them are biking and walking as primary means of transportation. And most of them say that they're using the bike that they got from Old Folks Home to get around for transportation. 33% also use them for recreation, which is great, but most of them are using them for transportation. So that got us thinking, you know, obviously our whole transportation system is not meeting the needs of a lot of Vermonters. And, you know, if we back up and look at who do our transportation systems serve, it's easy to see if you just look at the budget. So this is the FY 2021 transportation budget for the state. And, you know, most of the money is going to the interstate and paving and roadway safety. Some is bike and ped, not very much. And some are, you know, transportation alternatives and public transit. But if you look at the number of Vermonters who struggle getting access to a car compared to the percentage of the budget, transportation budget that's going to primarily vehicle transportation, it's skewed. It's you know, it's a lot of our transportation dollars are going to service one part of the population. And so we end up with a system that looks like, you know, this. We've got roads, we've got interstates. Vermont is like the rest of the country, and our interstate system is designed to bring people in from the suburbs and the rural areas in their single occupancy vehicle to downtown Burlington, where they're going to work and eat and shop, and then going home. Again, it's you know, it's one population, one segment of the population. And actually the interstate highway system, the history of it in the US is very racist. Actually, it was designed to serve white people who live in rural and suburban neighborhoods that were zoned to keep BIPOC communities out. And in fact, in some areas, they were purposely paved over BIPOC communities in inner cities, again, to get rid of those communities, basically. So it's really a terrible history that we are all benefiting from. And if we look at, again, who is served by that infrastructure, it is mostly, again, the numbers. If you look at, in Burlington anyway, the means of transportation to work by race and ethnicity, you know, most white people in Burlington are driving alone in their car. Whereas if you look at other communities, they are almost just as likely to be taking transit, or, you know, the percentage of, for example, members of the Black people and Hispanic or Latino, I mean, the percentage of them taking a bicycle or walking or, and definitely public transit is higher. So, you know, again, if we look at equity in terms of the distribution of resources for transportation, it's definitely skewed the way that we are allocating our resources. And again, like what I've seen since being at Old Folks Home is that creates inequities like ongoing, right? If you're a high school kid and you can't get to a summer job, I mean, you're already like, then you don't have an opportunity that people, you know, the kids that can get to a job have. I mean, you're already starting like behind, basically. You're a grade, in grade school, and your mom can't throw you in the back of the car to take you to the library like I did with my kids, right? I mean, that's, you don't have access throughout life to opportunities when you start off without, with poor transportation. It just stacks up. And so a lot of the, when we look at how these decisions are being made and who's in the room making them, this is a picture of the Burlington City Council meeting, not necessarily about transportation, but definitely making decisions about policy and city resources and how they get distributed. And the room is, everyone looks the same, right? And yet we know that the city of Burlington doesn't look like that. We know that only like almost 83% of the population of residents in Burlington are white and non-Hispanic, but a big portion are from other BIPOC communities who are not in this room, and they are not often in the room when decisions are being made. So that's why Old Spokes Home, we got some grant funding to be able to recruit and compensate community representatives for a transportation equity coalition that better represent the population, the whole population of Burlington. And we are working to create a platform for our community representatives to be at the table, to be able to inform decisions about planning, about transportation. They definitely inform our decisions about our program design, and then also are informing our advocacy messages. They had a lot of input on tonight's presentation, and some of our community representatives are here. So I just wanted to ask them if they want to contribute right now and say why they're involved in this process and what it means to them, and really better articulate than I can what it means when we don't have an equitable transportation system. So I didn't know if Jorge or Umesh or Annie wanted to pipe in.
I will go if nobody's going for that.
Thanks.
Hello, everybody. My name is Umesh. I'm from Essex right now. Thank you for inviting us here as a member of new immigrants. I don't know how you define me. It's me, but there are different terms that define me as new immigrant, brown, Asian, whatever it is, right? As a member of that community, I'm here. I'm a strong and a firm believer that everybody should have opportunities to be who they are and reach their fullest potential. I'm a strong advocate, not just for health equity and whatnot, but whenever I talk about health equity, I'm also talking about transportation equity, because I know where my people lives. Oftentimes we are the people who are living nearby the garbage area or some places right down the river where the drainage systems are. So we are the one who have to deal with all these things. At the same time, I also know what it means not to have a transportation system that allows us to do what we want to do. And that was the main reason for me to join the Equity Coalition, because again, I need to be there. Like, people need to hear my perspective. People need to hear from somebody who looks like me, because we are more than just the number. We are more than just the data. Our voice needs to be included here. And Laura, you did a really great job of talking about summer jobs for kids, because that's who I work for, who I work with, especially youth in Chittenden County now throughout the states. And what a disservice we are doing to youths from BIPOC community, people who cannot afford to buy a car, socioeconomic status, who are suffering from intergenerational poverty, who want to do good, but our infrastructures are not in place, or even our infrastructures are in place so that all these people are destined to fail, right? So almost all of our infrastructures are they lead to the failure of these people who want to do good. And oftentimes the blame goes back to the people for not doing enough, even if they're trying more than what they can possibly do. So I joined this, and we have been looking into, even not just in the transportation sense, but even in languages, like where are the bus stops, and are the bus stop equipped with the languages? Like, do we have any direction that are written in the languages that are spoken by people who live in that community? And looking at the data itself, like 8% of the residents live in zero car household. Like, does that actually represent the people who were not able to do that survey because of language barrier? Are we actually representing it? Is there any biases within the framework that we are using? Because oftentimes I'm that kind of person who looks into the biases of the framework that we use to do a lot of work. And that's the reason I'm here. And that being said, I'm going to pass it over to either Annie or Jorge, whoever want to talk.
Thanks, Umesh.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge. I am paraeducator in kindergarten level. Something that I noticed as I've been living here in Vermont 2 years, and what I think is there is a lot of races in transportation developing, and in terms of like there is not a lot of option for immigrant business to be success, because there is no roads, there is no parking, or there is not enough parking, and there is actually a lot of points that I ever seen about how we've been excluded on the electric in an electric plant, on the new energies, and a lot of things. And something that I know is like people who have been working in the past are creating so many problems in terms of transportation, and not always is the solution more cars or more roads in the bus. Is actually giving the voice to someone who think different and understand that a different view as no white person. Thank you.
Thanks, Jorge. Annie, did you want to say something about the coalition, or?
Well, Umesh and Jorge said very much a lot of the same feelings. I just care about people, and I'm a Vermonter. I've seen like a lot growing up, and I've also traveled a lot and have used different transportations as my means. And now I drive, and I use my car for work. I drive people around that don't have cars and can't drive cars. And I just have in my heart to help people and see my beautiful state stay beautiful in a way, like that's where I care about that as well. Mm-hmm. I'm a little shy. But it thrills me. I mean, it makes me sad too, because I've been mapping a little bit down in the Old North End, and just to see the bus stops is like ridiculous to me. Why we don't have, better protection and information. And so that's really, I'm excited to fight for some of this stuff.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah, so Annie and Jorge and Umesh and all of our reps have been talking to city council members in Burlington, the CCRPC, so the Burlington Walk Bike Council. So we're working to basically be able to make sure that a variety of voices and a diversity of voices are engaged in the planning process for transportation. And what we found is that we actually, it's a long-term thing, and we need to be part of the conversation, like early in the planning, in terms of how resources get allocated for transportation and in planning in general. So we're just new, but we're excited to continue the work and really be I hope to, that this coalition will be a fixture moving forward. And one of our first projects is the mobility audit in the Old North End that we're working with CCRPC on to try to get a better understanding of how people get around when they don't have a car or not. And Kelly is our program manager for that. And so I asked her to talk to you a little bit about our initial findings.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And thanks so much for our reps that are here, Jorge, Umesh, and Annie. It's really great to work with all of you, and I'm glad you could make it. So like Laura was saying, our first task as a coalition was to kind of implement this sort of research in the Old North End to find out how our neighbors at Old Folks Home were getting around. Just to give a little bit more context about the sense of place, the Old North End is a more diverse community in Burlington. It is lower income. And so it was really important to us to kind of hear those voices. Also, we do have data that fewer than 70% of households in the Old North End have a car. So we were really wondering about that 30%, how they get around, what their challenges might be. And it's been really interesting to hear about. So we'll show the next slide.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Sorry.
Great. So this is the little map we have of the Old North End, and the kind of yellow highlight is the bounds of our project area. So we'll be mapping this area with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, and this is also the area we've been surveying since December. And you'll see that these red lines on the map are high-speed roads. So that's like a lot of traffic and cars going fast, which is of course dangerous for families, dangerous for pedestrians, and also dangerous in the sense that it's previously brought up, but a lot of these lower income neighborhoods are more subject to emissions and pollution nationally. So we're also seeing that here in the Old North End potentially.
Next one.
Yes, thanks. So I want to give a little distillation about what we've seen so far in the survey, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about how we've been structuring the survey with the help of our reps. So going into it, we knew it wouldn't be a traditional sort of transit research where we're used to hearing from people for free who are already interested in transportation and already kind of know the jargon around it. So our reps really helped us kind of distill it into this simple, quick survey. And we really learned that we need to meet people where they're at. So I think in any sort of equity work or trying to gather the opinions of like underrepresented populations, it's really important if you can find funding to compensate those people. So we actually reached out to Mascoma Bank, and we've been able to compensate up to 120 respondents with $25 vanilla Visa gift cards. So that's been super helpful in kind of getting an audience we wouldn't otherwise hear from, and also being able to thank people for taking the time to give their voice on something that they otherwise maybe wouldn't have thought to speak about. And so we've kind of gone into phases with this survey. So after developing it since December, we ran it at the Chittenden County Food Shelf in person around Thanksgiving, just for a day. And then we worked with the AALV, the Association of Africans Living in Vermont, their language interpreters, to reach out to different circles. And our reps have also been really great about reaching out to people they know to take the survey. Right now, we're kind of reaching out to local organizations and community hubs around the Old North End to get the survey out. And I think we're planning on releasing it a little more widely next week. But yeah, so far it's been really interesting. We found that the most frequent reason people are traveling is to go get food, either at the food shelf or the grocery store. And I put this picture of City Market here, not just because it's a really nice picture, but also because it's the closest, I'd say, like supermarket to the Old North End. Not to discount the smaller markets that are in that neighborhood, but to get like more of a variety of foods, that's the closest area. It's not exactly the most affordable. So for those folks that are trying to get to like a Hannaford's or a Price Chopper, they're going to need a car or a bus. So in a way, it's a little bit of a food desert situation, which is interesting to hear about. The most difficult destination to get to, people are saying it's hardest to get to the doctor, and it also takes them the longest. A lot of respondents so far have said that it takes more than 45 minutes to get to their doctors. We also asked about the most frequent ways people are getting around. So in this order, most frequently people are either walking, driving their own car, or receiving a ride from friends and family. And then we also asked about what changes would help people get around a little better. So the number one change we've heard so far are better sidewalks. And by that, we've been hearing people say either more maintenance on those sidewalks, better plowing on the sidewalks. And also we've been hearing from a lot of people who rely on a mobility device like wheelchairs or walkers that it's really hard to navigate those sidewalks in the Old North End. And in addition to that qualitative data, we've been getting a lot of good anecdotal data. So these 3 quotes kind of represent a lot of what we've been hearing from folks. So for example, people share a car and need to depend on the bus, which isn't always reliable. Again, better roads and sidewalks has been a big thing we're hearing about. And then a lot of people don't own a bike or car. The bus doesn't always come. And this quote right here is a really good example of trips not taken. So a lot of folks are saying they can't go where they need to. They just stay home because it's too hard to navigate Burlington's transportation system. And they tend to miss out on doctor's appointments, food shopping, those sort of things that a lot of us take for granted. Yeah.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess I can, we just want to thank, we've had a lot of support for this work. And again, it's important, it was important to us to get financial support so that we are able to compensate our community representatives for the really valuable lived experience expertise that they're providing to this process, and to our work at Old Spokes Home, but also helping us to inform and advocate for better transportation equity.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was wonderful, and thank you to Kelly for presenting that information and all the community representatives. That was a really great presentation. So we do have some time for some questions from folks that are here. So you can put your question in the chat, or you can just unmute and ask your question. We have several of our awards recipients are still here too. So if you have specific questions for them, feel free to. But I see Cindy has a question. Go ahead, Cindy.
Hi, I just had a quick comment of 3 very brief points. I'm actually the attorney for Pine Street Coalition, and as I was listening to Laura and to Kelly, I had 3 points of linkage that I just wanted to note. One is that both Kelly and Laura mentioned voices not being heard, and what's important to me is that the role of allies, the role of white allies, the role of white organizations and activists and people is to make the space for those voices that need to be heard. And that is something that in our alliance with Racial Justice Alliance on the Champlain Parkway that we did with our resources, and coming from the position we were coming from, we were able to bring a lawsuit that busted open the process to allow the voices that needed to be heard. And I think that's an extremely important point. Another, as you mentioned, the higher percentage of Black, Brown, and immigrant people who are walking and biking as their main transportation routes. And I would note that Black, Brown, and immigrant people also have a much higher risk of injury and death while walking and biking percentage-wise than do white pedestrians and bicyclists. And when you increase traffic and when you increase traffic speed in a neighborhood, which is one of the things we're looking at, but anywhere, you also highly increase that risk further. So that ties back to that health risk we were talking about. Lastly, I just said, you mentioned the American Community Survey data skew, and that played a role in the ongoing environmental justice review for the Champlain Parkway. And actually, Mickey Dash is here, who's a statistics professor, and she was our expert witness regarding that in our comments on the environmental justice review, which was that the agencies played fast and loose with the data by selecting from American Community Survey data that indicated smaller populations of Black and brown people in the affected neighborhoods, when we know that part of the reason that data was smaller than the last census data was this question about immigration status, and just the fact that it's less reliable data. Data is extremely critical. And that famous "there's lies, damn lies, and statistics." And this, you wouldn't think that which questions were asked in the American Community Survey is going to play out in transportation policy that winds up causing more Black deaths in Burlington, but it in fact plays out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Really important point. Tony, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, first, I want to just thank Cindy Ellen Hill, who's perhaps the most knowledgeable transportation and environmental lawyer I've ever encountered. And we're without her, Vermont Racial Justice Alliance and ourselves would be, we would not have a real chance of success. Having said that, I want to respond to the survey. I'm really excited by the work that Laura Jacoby and Kelly Duggan is doing, and the survey that's going on in the Old North End, because this is sort of coming around. All the work that we've done in the Parkway, particularly over the last year and a half in regard to environmental justice, and learning about the transit-dependent, walk-dependent population that Kelly describes is, since I've also been a long-term resident of the Old North End, I began to work that back on, particularly on the North Avenue, North Street, one of the high-speed streets there. Because when I first came to Burlington, I did not understand what could be done on North Street, also those other fast streets that you have on the map. But something can be done. And it all ties into discrimination against low income and people of brown and Black skins, because that gives us the understanding of why we cannot have unsafe intersections. The two safest kinds of intersections are always stops and roundabouts. Okay, so the cure to these difficult intersections on North Street and North Street and North Champlain and Park will be to deal with the intersections to make these streets walkable. Walkability is key. And I've just finished I've got one more chapter in a series on walkability that I've been posting on the Walk Bike listserv, which I'm sure Laura has seen and some of the others have seen here in the city. The last chapter is the windup, which is we do now have an answer from what we've learned in the Parkway effort, and that is we can redo North Street and these other key residential streets where walking is so important and where it's so unsafe today. I'll leave the answer to that to what I write, and or will circulate probably within the next week or so.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. Looking forward to reading that. And feel free, folks, to put, if there's any resources that you think this group might be interested in, to put that in the chat. The links are really useful to share resources. Are there any other questions? I don't see any in the chat. Oh, Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I mean, I think we have such a such a great opportunity right now to the combined voices of the climate activists and people who are caring about the climate and want more resources for transportation that's clean, which that is biking, walking, transit, right? And those those of us who really are care about equity, transportation equity. I mean, I think we have an opportunity to work together and really because we all want the same thing. And yeah, and I mean, it requires a reallocation of transportation resources and dollars, and we should be demanding that.
Jack, do you have a question?
Not so much a question as a comment as we wrap up. That we're meeting on Rosa Parks' birthday, and it's also, we're coming up next month on the 50th anniversary of a really important Supreme Court case that not too many people pay that much attention to, the Volpe case, which really, based on citizen action to block a highway through a park in Memphis, Tennessee, at a time when Memphis was undergoing the turmoil of the sanitation strike and the assassination of Dr. King. And at a time when Black residents of Memphis were only allowed to use that park on Tuesdays. The very important citizen action that ended up blocking that highway and providing us legal recourse to do what we try to do and to make decisions like highway decisions. I was very interested to hear about the Champlain Parkway. We're standing on the shoulders of activists over the past 50 years, and yet we have so much left to do. I learned an awful lot from all of you, and I congratulate all of you on your awards and on your continuing dedication to this cause. It just gives me a great deal of pleasure to see this activism at work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, for calling that out. And Mark has been putting some great resources if you want to learn more about the fight against the Champlain Parkway. And certainly, encourage folks to stay in touch with this group. It sounds like there's a lot of important work going on. I think we do have time for one more question. If anyone has one, we'll usually wrap up at 8 unless, I guess, Laura, a question I'll throw out. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark. Did you want to go ahead, Mark?
Thank you. My internet is horrible here. Yeah. You probably have a slight delay. My internet is really bad. And it kind of goes with the territory. It's because where I live on Riverside. And it's really consistent with the point I was going to make is that there's a Riverside in Burlington, Vermont. So there's an overlay in all of these areas of social and economic oppression that exists. And if you look for it, you'll see it. And so I'll almost leave it there, but I was just thinking, and I'd never thought about it. And by the way, shout out to Laura, and thank God for Charlie Baker over there at the Chittenden County. But I was thinking about, as you're standing at the bus stop, which is like right there, there's one right there too. There's also a higher, not only is there a higher level of traffic, but there's also more police. Here. Mm-hmm. Did you ever notice that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'll just almost like leave it there, but I just wanted to just think about the overlays, and the internet's really poor here. And the list goes on. So, I say it to say this is there's a lot of partners out there that are doing similar work that you're doing. Same demographic, different problems. Problems. There's the board back there. So so just keep that in mind. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. So I'm going to really appreciate this conversation, and I'm so glad we had so many people come together today. The work continues, and I want to turn it over to Rob to share a little bit about our upcoming community conversations. We host these types of sessions almost every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And Rob, do you want to talk about some of our upcoming conversations?
Yep. First, I want to remind everybody of who our awards were tonight. Barbara Donovan, Migrant Justice, Dan Jones of Sustainable Montpelier, Brattleboro Coalition for Active Transportation, the Pine Street Coalition with Racial Justice Alliance. These nominations were nominated and our volunteer transportation team selected them. We actually had a really good conversation talking about who is deserving it. So we appreciate all the work that was put in by our entire transportation team with us on this event on. And also thank you, Laura, Jacoby, and the entire Transportation Equity Coalition for their conversations today. And I'm gonna just wanted to promote our next couple events. We normally do our community conversations on Wednesday night. This one was done on Thursday because February 4th, as somebody noted, was Rosa Parks' birthday, and it's officially Transportation Equity Day. So on Wednesday night, we normally do our virtual conversations. On the 10th, we're doing Reversing the Rollbacks, which including Rachel Stevens is part of it. as attorneys with the Sierra Club on how we're going to roll back all the environmental degradation of the Trump administration. Then on following up on this conversation on the 17th of February is environmental advocacy and racial justice. That includes Sierra Club's Hop Hopkins, who's the director of community partnership relations. We're going to have Kaya Morris of Rights and Democracy and Lisa Ryan, community activist from Rutland area, talking about those particular areas. And then on the 24th is going to be a program around building electrification. But please visit our website. You see sierraclub.org/Vermont for all the upcoming events, and there'll be all of our conversation recordings, including this one, will be posted up on there. So thank you all for participating tonight. Once again, thanks for the entire Sierra Club team. Thanks for the Vermont Natural Resources and Transportation for Vermonters for co-sponsoring it. And again, all the award winners and Laura Jacoby and the Transportation Equity team. So thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you to our planning team. This is great. Have a great night, everyone.